Use Ansible to back up and configure a device. In this lab, you will explore the fundamentals of how to use Ansible to automate some basic device management tasks. First, you will configure Ansible in your DevNet Associate virtual machine. Next, you will use Ansible to connect the CSR 1000B and backup its configuration. Finally, you will configure the CSR 1000B with IPv6 addressing. Required resources: one PC with operating system of your choice, VirtualBox or VMware, DevNet Associate virtual machine, CSR 1000B virtual machine. Okay, there are another requirements for this. So you can see the previous lab on the playlist in the description of the video. Launch the DevNet Associate virtual machine and CSR 1000B virtual machine. If you have not already completed the lab, install the virtual machine lab environment, do so now. If you have already completed that lab, launch the DevNet Associate virtual machine now. If you have not already completed the lab, install the DevNet Associate Lab and CSR 1000B virtual machine, do so now. If you have already completed that lab, launch the CSR 1000B virtual machine now. Okay, you can see the previous labs on the playlist shown in the video's description, because I have a method to run the CSR 1000B and connect it to the DevNet Associate virtual machine using GNS3. Okay, open GNS3. Cancel. Wait a moment. Okay, and create a new blank project. You can choose a name for this project. Any name, I will use this. Okay. Now go to routers section and drag this router CSR 1000B. And on end devices section, drag the DevNet Associate virtual machine. And use this cable, this link, to connect them from Ethernet 0 on the virtual machine to Gigabit 1 on the router. Okay, I will show the interfaces. Gigabit 1, Ethernet 0. Very good. Okay, and start the router. Double click to view the console. Okay, while the router is starting, start the virtual machine. But before to start the virtual machine, do the following. Go to VirtualBox, and select DevNet Associate Virtual Machine, right click and go to Settings. Network is configured with NAT to work on VirtualBox, and advanced the cable is connected. But to use on GNS3, use a generic driver or not attached. Okay, I will use generic driver and be sure cable is connected here. Okay, you can close this. Go to GNS3 and start the virtual machine. Start. Okay, the virtual machine is ready. Review the console of the router. Okay, the router may take a while. Okay, would you like to enter initial configuration dialog? No. Would you like to terminate auto install? Yes. And wait a moment. Enter. Okay, this is the prompt. The host name for now is router and you are on user exec mode. Configure Ansible. In this part, you will configure Ansible to run from a specific directory. Open the Ansible directory in Visual Studio Code. Open Visual Studio Code. Click File, Open Folder, and navigate to Labs DevNet Ansible folder. Click the File, Open Folder, and navigate to the Labs DevNet Source Ansible folder. Then OK. Okay, on the virtual machine, open Visual Studio Code. This. Go to File, Open Folder. Then it's here, down here. Go to Labs DevNet Source in Ansible. Double click, open. Click here on the Explorer and you will see Ansible directory. In Ansible directory, you will see two subdirectories, Ansible Apache and Ansible CSR 1000B. The two subdirectories for the Ansible labs are now loaded in the Visual Studio Code Explorer pane for your convenience. In this lab, you will work with the Ansible CSR 1000B directory. Okay, you will work with this directory ansible-csr 1000b. Edit the Ansible inventory file. Ansible uses an inventory file called hosts that contains device information used by Ansible playbooks. The default location for the Ansible inventory file is etc Ansible hosts, as specified in the default Ansible configuration in the same etc Ansible directory. These default files are used when Ansible is run globally. However, in this lab you will run Ansible from the Ansible CSR 1000B directory. Therefore, you need separate hosts and Ansible configuration files for each lab. Note: the terms host file and inventory file are synonymous and will be used interchangeably throughout the Ansible labs. The Ansible inventory file defines the devices and groups of devices that are used by the Ansible playbook. The file can be in one of many formats, including YAML and INI, depending on your Ansible environment. The inventory file can list devices by IP address or fully qualified domain name, FQDN, and may include host-specific parameters as well. Open the hosts file in the Ansible CSR 1000B directory. Add the following lines to the hosts file and save. Okay, open this file, hosts file, place it in this directory, Ansible CSR 1000. Okay, expand the Ansible CSR 1000B directory and open hosts. Okay, open this file. Add the following lines and save. Okay, add these lines. A comment. The comment is enter the hosts or devices for Ansible playbooks. Okay, it's only a comment, you can choose any and do the following. The alias CSR1KB, case sensitive, use the Ansible use underscore user will be Cisco space Ansible password will be Cisco 123 and the exclamation mark, the Ansible host, the IP address of the router 192.168.56.101. Enter. Okay, That is enough. Okay, this is the alias, the username to access the router, the password to access the router, and the IP address of the router. Don't forget to save. Save. Very nice. Okay, and now after the comment, the host file begins with an alias CSR1KB, case sensitive. An alias is used from within the Ansible playbook to reference a device. After the alias, the host file specifies three variables that will be used by the Ansible playbook to access the device. These are the SSH credentials Ansible needs to securely access the CSR1000B virtual machine. The first variable, Ansible user, is a variable containing the username used to connect to the remote device. Without this, the user that is running the Ansible playbook would be used. Ansible password is a variable containing the corresponding password for Ansible user. If not specified, the SSH key would be used. Ansible hosts is a variable containing the IP address or FQDN of the device. Now display the Ansible version for a default Ansible configuration location. To see where Ansible stores the default Ansible CFG file, open a terminal window and navigate up one directory to the Ansible parent directory. Okay, go to this directory. To navigate to this directory, the labs DevNet source Ansible. Okay, you can use change directory command cd. Okay, you can do this on terminal. Hide Visual Studio Code, open a terminal. Okay, for example, go to cd labs, cd devnet. Press tab to complete devnet source, enter, and cd ansible, tab, enter. Okay, you are on labs devnet source ansible directory, and type ansible to get a list of the ansible commands. Notice the version option. Okay, type ansible, enter. Version option. Okay, use the ansible version command to display version information. Notice that this lab is using version 296. Ansible includes certain default files, including a default configuration file, Ansible CFG. Okay, Ansible version. Ansible space dash dash version. And you can see the version, in this case, Ansible 299. And the configuration file is ansible.cfg and is placed on etc ansible directory. Display the default Ansible CFG file. The Ansible CFG file is used by Ansible to set certain default values. These values can be modified using the default path displayed in the Ansible version command. Display the default configuration file. Notice this is a very long file. Highlighted are the entries that will be in your Ansible CFG file for this lab. Okay, look at these lines. The inventory host key checking, and retrieve files enabled. Okay, and go to just only, you can use less, is a better tool than cat and more. On etc directory, ansible and ansible.cfg. Okay, enter. You can go down, go up, page down, page up. And you can see the inventory. Host key checking, and more options. This is a very long file. Okay, press Q to exit, Q key. Very good. Notice that Ansible shows that the inventory host file it will use by default is etc Ansible hosts. In a previous step, you edited the inventory host file in the Ansible CSR 1000B directory. In the next step, you will edit a new Ansible CFG file which uses the host's inventory file that you created. Okay. Okay, this Ansible CFG configuration file is using a host file placed in this etc Ansible directory. But the host file that we are using is placed on Ansible CSR 1000B directory. Okay. Okay, and next, change the location of the Ansible CFG file. Ansible will use the config file located in etc Ansible directory. This is the file, Ansible CFG. Unless there is an Ansible CFG file in the current directory. Change back to the Ansible CSR 1000B directory. There is already a placeholder Ansible CFG file in this directory. Display the current location of Ansible CFG with the Ansible version command. Okay, and navigate with change directory, navigate to Ansible CSR 1000B directory, this. Okay, using terminal. Okay, and change directory to Ansible dash, press tab to complete, or CSR, tab to complete, enter. And now you are on the labs DevNet source Ansible CSR 1000B directory. And verify Ansible version. Use Ansible with version Ansible version. Ansible version, the version 299. But look at this, the configuration file is placed on home DevNet associate labs DevNet source Ansible CSR 1000B directory. This is the file. place it on Ansible CSR 1000B directory. Go to Visual Studio, and is this on Ansible CSR 1000B directory? This is the file, ansible.cfg, the configuration file of Ansible. Display the file to see that it is empty, except for a comment. You will edit this file in the next step. Okay, you can show the file content, only a comment, only one line. Okay, is this line. You can use the terminal to view the file or use Visual Studio Code. Is this. Okay. Edit the Ansible configuration file. You need to edit your Ansible configuration file, place it on the Ansible CSR 1000B directory to include the location of your host's inventory file. Remember that the default config file in the etc Ansible configuration uses the inventory file in the etc Ansible hosts. Open the Ansible CSR 1000B Ansible configuration file in Visual Studio Code. Is this. Okay, this. You can remove the comment and add the following lines to the file and save it. Add another comment, the default, and use localhost file in this folder. This is a comment. And add inventory host key checking, retrieve files, enable deprecation warnings. Okay, another comment, config file for Ansible CSR 1000B. Okay, for this directory is only a comment, it's just defaults. Okay, another comment, use localhost file in this folder. Okay, the inventory equal to hosts. Point and slash means that hosts file is placed on the same directory of this Ansible CFG file. I repeat, point and slash means that the hosts file is placed on the same directory on this Ansible configuration file. Okay, and is this file previously configured, previously edited. Enter host underscore key underscore checking false. And you can add a comment. Yes. Don't worry about RSA fingerprints. Retry files enabled false. Do not create them. And only comments deprecation warnings. false. Do not show warnings. Okay, review. Okay, and don't forget to save. Save. Like Phaidon, the hashtag is used for comments within the Ansible configuration file. Variables can have a comment on the same line as shown for hotkey checking and retry files enabled. The Ansible configuration file tells Ansible where to find the inventory file and sets certain default parameters. The information you entered in your Ansible configuration file is inventory /hosts. Your inventory file is the hosts file in the current directory. Hotkey checking false. The local development environment does not have SSH keys set up. You have set the hotkey checking set to false, which is the default. In a production network, hotkey checking would be set to true. Retry files enable false. When Ansible has problems running playbooks for a host, it will output the name of the host into a file in the current directory ending in retry. To prevent clutter, it is common to disable these settings. Deprecation warnings false. Deprecation warnings indicate usage of legacy features that are slated for removal in a future release of Ansible. You have disabled this warning. Okay, these options. Summary, your Ansible configuration files. You configured Ansible to run in the Ansible CSR 1000B directory. By default, Ansible uses files in the etc Ansible directory. The default etc Ansible configuration file indicates that the default inventory file is etc Ansible hosts. However, in this lab you need a host file and Ansible configuration file in your Ansible CSR 1000B directory. You edited the host file to contain login and IP address information for the CSR 1000B router. You edited the Ansible CFG file to use the local host file as the inventory file, inventory hosts. In the next part, you will create a playbook to tell Ansible what to do. Use Ansible to back up a configuration. You will create an Ansible playbook that will automate the process of backing up the configuration of the CSR 1000B. Playbooks are at the center of Ansible. When you want Ansible to get information or perform an action on a device or group of devices, you run a playbook to get the job done. An Ansible playbook is a YAML file containing one or more plays. Each play is a collection of tasks. A play is a matching set of tasks to a device or group of devices. A task is a single action that references a module to run along with any input arguments and actions. These tasks can be simple or complex depending on the needed for permissions, the order to run the tasks, and so on. A playbook may also contain roles. A role is a mechanism for breaking a playbook into multiple components or files, simplifying the playbook and making it easier to reuse. For example, the command role is used to store tasks that can be used across all of your playbooks. Roles are beyond the scope of this lab. The Ansible YAML playbook includes objects, lists, and modules. A YAML object is one or more key value pairs. Key value pairs are separated by a colon without the use of quotation marks. For example, hosts colon space CSR1 KB. An object can contain other objects such as a list. YAML uses list of arrays. A hyphen is used for each element in the list. Ansible ships with a number of modules, called the module library, that can be executed directly on remote hosts or through playbooks. An example is the iOS command module used to send commands to the iOS device and return the results. Each task typically consists of one or more Ansible modules. You run an Ansible playbook using the ansible-playbook command, for example. Ansible-playbook, the name of the file with extension YAML. The inventory is hosts. The Ansible playbook command uses parameters to specify the playbook you want to run, the file, the YAML file, and the inventory file and its location. For example, I for inventory and hosts is the inventory. Now, create your Ansible playbook. The Ansible playbook is a YAML file. Make sure you use the proper YAML indentation. Every space and dash is significant. You may lose some formatting if you copy and paste the code in this lab. In Visual Studio Code, create a new file in the Ansible CSR1000B directory with the following name: backup Cisco router playbook.yaml. Okay, and create this file in the Ansible CSR1000B directory. Okay, go to virtual machine. Okay, this is the Ansible directory, and create right-click, new file, and set the name backup underscore Cisco underscore router underscore playbook dot YAML. Okay, backup underscore Cisco underscore router underscore playbook dot YAML. Enter. Okay, this is the file. Obviously, it's empty. Add the following information. Okay, and the hyphen. Okay, here 3 dashes. Be careful. The name, choose any name, but use this. The host, the alias, some options, and create the tasks. Okay, these are the tasks. Okay, 3 dashes, enter 1 dash, hyphen, okay, name, columns, space, automatic backup of running config, enter, tab, hosts, CSR 1000 1 KB. Enter. Okay, go to the host files, and should be this case sensitive CSR 1 KB. CSR 1 KB should be the same. Okay, remember host file, Ansible configuration file, and YAML file, they are in the same directory in the Ansible CSR 1000B directory. And gather facts column false, enter connection column local, enter. Okay, another enter. Now define the tasks column, enter. The name of the task, display the running config. Okay, tab iOS command module, tab command, enter, dash space. The iOS command is show running config. Okay, be careful. Backspace and register config. Okay, all the running configuration will be placed on this variable config. Okay, enter backspace, another task, space name, save output to backups directory. Okay, choose any name, but this is a very good name, save output to backups directory. And this backups directory should be placed on the same directory. Okay, let's see. Tab, the task is copy, column, tab, the content. What is the content? The content is config that standard output std out. Okay, remember, the show running config will be placed on config variable, and this config variable, the standard output std out. Okay, that is very good. Enter. The destination dest is a file. Okay, the backups directory, and the name of the file will be show run underscore the inventory hostname. Inventory underscore hostname. and the extension txt file. Okay, this is the directory, backups directory, and this backups directory should be placed in the Ansible CSR 1000B directory. Okay, and the file name is this with extension txt. This is the variable, is the inventory hostname. Okay, and should be CSR 1000B or CSR 1KB. Okay, that is enough. Save. Examine your Ansible playbook. The playbook you have created contains one play with 2 tasks. The following is an explanation of your playbook. 3 dashes. This is at the beginning of every YAML file, which indicates to YAML that this is a separate document. Each file may contain multiple documents separated by 3 dashes. The name. This is the name of the play. Host CSR1KB. This is the alias of the previously configured host file. By referring to this alias in your playbook, the playbook can use all the parameters associated with this inventory file entry, which includes the username, password, and IP address of the device. Gather facts false. Ansible was originally designed to work with Linux servers, copying FIDON modules to the servers for task automation. This is not necessary when working with networking devices. Connection local specifies that you are not using SSH, therefore the connection is local. Okay, and note that in practice we will use SSH. Okay, anyway, use connection local. Tasks. The keyword indicates one or more tasks to be performed. The first task is to display the running config. The name of the task, iOS command. This is an Ansible module that is used to send commands to an iOS device and return the results read from the device. However, it does not support configuration commands. The iOS config module is used for this purpose, as you will see in the next part of this lab. Note, in the Linux terminal you can use the Ansible doc and module name command to view the manual pages for the module and the parameters associated with a module. For example, Ansible doc iOS command. You can see, for example, the documentation of iOS underscore command or copy. We'll do this on terminal. Ansible doc iOS underscore command. Enter. Okay, it's only command. Okay, remove the letter S. Enter. Now, for example, in the commands list of commands to send to the remote iOS device over the configured provider, or Q. Okay, review and look at this. This is commands. Okay, I used only command at the letter S. Commands save. Okay, don't forget to save and for example copy module. The copy module copies a file from the local or remote machine to a location on the remote machine. You can see the content. Okay, content sets the contents of a file directly to the specified value. Is this content and destination. Dest remote absolute path where the file should be copied to. Okay, Q to exit. Commands. This parameter is associated with iOS command module. It is used to list iOS commands in the playbook that are to be sent to the remote iOS device. The resulting output from the command is returned. Show running config. This is the Cisco iOS command sent using the iOS command module. Register config. Ansible includes registers used to capture output of a task to a variable. This entry specifies that the output from the previous show running config command will be stored in the variable config. The second task is to save the output. Okay, this task, Visual Studio Code, this task. The name copy. This is an Ansible module used to copy files to a remote location. There are two parameters associated. Content, config standard output. The specified value for this parameter is the data stored in the config variable. The Ansible register variable used in the previous task. The standard output stdout is the default file descriptor where a process can write output using Unix-like operating systems such as Linux and Mac OS X. Destination, backups directory and the file name. This is the path and the file name to where the file should be copied. The inventory hostname variable is an Ansible magic variable that automatically receives the hostname as configured in the host file. In your case, recall that this is CSR1KB. This parameter results in a file, showrun csr1kb.txt stored in the backups directory. The file will contain the output of the showrunning command. You will create the backups directory in the next step. Run the Ansible backup playbook. Part 1. You started the CSR1000B virtual machine. Ping it to verify you can access it. Enter Ctrl+C to abort the ping. Okay, on terminal, ping the router. Okay, you can be in any directory, don't worry about the directory. Use ping to the router. Okay, go to virtual machine, the terminal, and ping to the router 192.168.56.101. Network is unreachable. Okay, verify the IP address on the virtual machine IP address. And this is the loopback interface. This is the Ethernet interface, EMP0S3, no IP address. Okay, and go to the router, enter, and enable show running config. Space, 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 space. So gigabit interface on the router is not configured. Remember, I'm using gigabit 1, and that interface is not configured with an IP address. Okay, configure terminal. I will configure a host name. Use this CSR1KB. Enter. Now you can see the new name. Also configure the interface gigabit 1 IP address 192.168.56.101 255 255 255.0. Now shut down to enable this interface. Okay, very nice. Okay, the interface up, enter, exit. Now I will configure a DHCP server to list an IP address for the DevNet associate virtual machine. Okay, configure the DHCP server. IP DHCP excluded dash address 192.168.56.101. This is an excluded address that will not be used to list IP addresses. Okay, exclude this, the IP address of the router, and create a pool, IP DHCP pool, DevNet. Choose any name, don't worry, network. Choose this network, 560 with this subnet mask, the same subnet mask of this, but then this is the network address is 0. Also, you can configure the default router, but it's not necessary for now. Exit. And once this is the configuration of the host name, configuration of the IP address on the interface, and the DHCP server. Go to the virtual machine and repeat this command IP address. Okay, no IP address, again, IP address. Okay, and EMP0S3 IP address 192.168.56.1. Very nice. And now, ping to the router. Okay, from the virtual machine, ping to the router. Success. Control C to stop this. Okay, and before to continue, don't forget to configure SSH, because Ansible will use SSH to connect to the router. Okay, I repeat, Ansible will use SSH to connect to the router. So use the following on the router. First, the domain IP domain dash name, for example, cisco.com. Choose any domain, a username. The username should be this, and go to the Visual Studio Code, go to hosts file. The username should be Cisco, and password will be Cisco123 and exclamation mark. Okay, and username Cisco. Privilege 15, the maximum privilege to make changes on the router. Okay, the maximum privilege to get the privilege exec mode on the router. Okay, and the secret password can be Cisco123 and exclamation mark, enter. Okay, this is very important for this. And create the crypto key generate RSA general keys modulus 1024. Very nice. And configure the virtual terminal lines, line BTY 0 to 15. Login local to use this local username, and transport input SSH exit. And also you can configure an enable password like enable secret, the same password, Cisco123 and exclamation mark. Okay, all this. And test SSH from the virtual machine. Okay, go to the virtual machine, the terminal. Cisco is the user, and SSH protocol, and Cisco is the user. The IP address of the router 56.1.1. Enter. Okay, and maybe you will receive this message: warning, remote host identification has changed. And you can solve this, remove this file, known hosts placed on home DevNet associate on SSH hidden directory, and remove this file, known hosts. Okay, you can use rm to remove on home directory DevNet associate .ssh known. Press tab to complete. Okay, remove only this file, enter. And again, try SSH, username Cisco, and IP address, enter. Okay, yes. Password Cisco123 exclamation mark, enter. Very nice. You are on the router. So SSH is working very good. That's it. Okay, this is necessary. Okay, and now create backups directory as indicated in the last line of your playbook. This is the directory where the backup configuration file will be stored. Okay, make directory backups, but not on Ansible. You can place this backups subdirectory on CSR, on Ansible CSR, on Ansible CSR, 1000b directory. Okay, be careful. Okay, because I'll go to the Visual Studio Code. Okay, Ansible CSR 1000b is the main directory, and all files and directories should be placed on the same directory. So backups directory should be placed in Ansible CSR 1000b. Okay, Ansible configuration file, the playbook file, and host file, and backups directory all should be placed on the same directory. Okay, so on Ansible CSR 1000b, create the backups directory. Okay, here Ansible-CSR 1000b, make directory backups. Okay, be careful, backups. Enter. Verify. Okay, the Ansible configuration file, the playbook file, the backups directory, and host file. Host file should be in the, all these should be in the same directory. Okay, very important. Now you can run the Ansible playbook. Use ansible-playbook and the name of the file. Ansible-playbook and backup tab backup underscore tab. Okay, the Ansible playbook command and the file name. Enter. Okay, this is the name of the play, automatic backup of the running config. The first task, display the running config. CSR 1KB found. The second task, save the output to the backups directory and change it, this file. Okay, and okay, 2, change it 1, very nice. In many examples, you will see the playbook run using the I inventory file name option for the example. Okay, Ansible playbook, the file name I hosts. This option tells Ansible the location and name of the inventory file, the list of devices the playbook will use. This option is not necessary because you configure the inventory file name and location in your local Ansible configuration file. Okay, inventory hosts. Okay, remember that is specified on the Ansible configuration file here. So you don't need to add the option I. The play recap should display OK2 changed 1, indicating a successful playbook execution. If your Ansible playbook fails, some of the things to check in your playbook are: make sure your hosts and Ansible files are correct, make sure YAML indentation is correct, make sure your iOS command is correct, check all the Ansible playbook syntax, verify you can ping the CSR 1000b. If you continue to have problems, try typing one line at a time and running the playbook each time. Compare your file with the solutions playbook in the Ansible solutions directory. Now verify the backup file has been created. In Visual Studio Code, open the backups folder and open the show running csr1kb.txt file. You can also use the terminal window to cut the file with cat backups show run csr1kb txt. You now have a backup of the CSR 1000B configuration. Okay, use terminal. Remember, you are on Ansible, Ansible CSR 1000B directory, and ls. This is the backups directory. You can use less backups slash and show underscore run, tab to complete the name, and look at this file exists, show run csr1kb.txt. Or previously you can verify ls backups directory, and you can find this file. Okay, so that's why you can use less to read that file, show underscore tab, enter. Now you can see all the configurations, the SSH configuration, HTTP configuration, the interface configuration, the username with privilege 15, the DHCP server, the domain name, enable secret, the host name. Very good. Q to exit, Q. Use Ansible to configure a device. You will create another Ansible playbook to configure IPv6 addressing on the CSR1000B router. View your host's inventory file. Re-examine your host inventory file. As a reminder, this file contains the alias CSR1KB and 3 inventory variables for the username, password, and host IP address. The playbook for this part will also use the file and the Ansible configuration file you created early in the lab. Okay, you can verify the contents of hosts file. Okay, go to DevNet associate hosts. Okay, the same content, the alias, the username, the password, the IP address. Create a new playbook. In Visual Studio Code, create a new file in the Ansible CSR1000B directory with the following name: Cisco Router IPv6 config playbook .yaml. Okay, here in the Ansible CSR1000B directory, right-click, new file, and use the following name: Cisco underscore router underscore IPv6 underscore config underscore playbook .yaml. Review Cisco router IPv6 config playbook YAML. Enter. And obviously is empty. And add the following information to the file. Okay, all this. And I will use the backup. I will use backup Cisco router playbook. Okay, copy and paste. Okay, and make the modifications. For example, here the name of the play is configure IPv6. addressing. Okay, the hosts is the alias CSR1KB, very the same. Gator fax false, the same. Connection local, very good. The tasks, okay. The first task is set IPv6 address. The iOS, the module is different iOS config. Okay, this is to configure the device. iOS underscore config, and use the parents quotation marks and interface gigabit Ethernet 1. Okay, be careful. You can try only using interface gigabit 1, but you can use the complete name interface gigabit Ethernet 1, just like this. Okay, and lines. Okay, set the following commands, description, IPv6 address, set the IPv6 address 001 DB8 ACAD 1::1 prefix 64, and the link local address IPv6 address FE80::1:1 link local. Okay, remove the register. Okay, look at, review the task, the new module iOS config, the parents is the interface gigabit 1, the lines to configure. This is only a description for the IP. You can choose any description, but this is a command, IPv6 address and link local. Okay, and the second task is show IPv6 and copy this because in this case they are 3 tasks, 1, 2, and 3, and the third task is save output, save the configuration. Okay, copy this, paste, enter. Be careful, look at the alignment, the indentation. Okay, show IPv6 interface brief. Interface brief. So you can use the iOS command module. On the top, and the commands are tab dash space show IPv6 interface brief. This is the iOS command, and backspace register copy to a output variable, and remove these lines. Okay, the name, any name, iOS command, this is the module, the commands, the iOS command, show IPv6 interface brief, and save the output to a variable called output. The third task is save output dot slash iOS configurations. It's a new subdirectory, iOS underscore configurations. Copy the content is an output variable, standard output of Linux. And the destination is obviously this same directory, iOS underscore configurations, and the name of the file will be IPv6 underscore output underscore inventory hostname. Okay, inventory hostname txt. Okay, and review. Be careful with the alignment, indentation. Okay, 3 dashes, the play, configure IPv6 addressing, the hosts, CSR1 KB, GatorFax, false, connection local. Tasks, 3 tasks. The first, the name, don't worry, iOS underscore config, the parents, the name of the interface, the lines, the 3 lines to configure. Be careful with these two last lines. Okay, be careful. And the second task, the name, iOS command, the commands, show IPv6 interface brief. Copy this to an output variable. And the third task, save output. This is only a name, don't worry. Copy the content of the output variable to this subdirectory iOS configurations, and the name of the file IPv6 underscore output underscore the file, the hostname .txt. Save. Remember, this is Cisco router IPv6 config playbook file. Okay. Examine your Ansible playbook. Much of this playbook is similar to the playbook you created in the previous part. The main difference is the first task, set IPv6 address. The following is a brief description of the items in the task. iOS config. This is an Ansible module used to configure the iOS device. You can use the Ansible doc iOS config command to see the details of the parents and lines parameters using in this playbook. Okay, and Ansible doc iOS underscore config. Enter. And you can see parents page down. This is lines, the ordered set of commands that should be configured in the section. And parents, down here, parents, the ordered set of parents that uniquely identify the section or hierarchy the commands should be checked against. Okay, this is the section, the interface. Okay, Q to exit. Okay, parents, interface gigabit 1. These parameters indicates the iOS interface configuration mode. Lines. An ordered set of iOS commands are configured in these sections, specifying the IPv6 addressing information for the gigabit 1 interface. The rest of the playbook is similar to the tasks in the previous part. The second task uses the iOS command module and the command show IPv6 interface brief to display the output and send it to a register output. The last task saves the information in the register output to a file IPv6 output CSR 1kb.txt in the iOS configuration subdirectory. Run the Ansible playbook to configure IPv6 addressing on the CSR 1000B virtual machine. Okay, you started the CSR 1000B virtual machine, ping to verify the access. Okay, this is already verified, don't worry, and create the directory iOS configurations. As indicated in the last line of your playbook, this is the directory where the output for the show IPv6 interface brief command will be stored. Okay, again, do this on ansible.csr 1000b directory. Make directory iOS configurations. Okay, on this directory ansible-csr 1000b iOS underscore configurations. Okay, be careful with the name iOS configurations. iOS configuration. Enter and verify. Okay, iOS configuration subdirectory. Okay, Ansible configuration hosts the new playbook for IPv6 and iOS configurations directory all should be in the same directory. And run the playbook. The verbose option can be used to display the tasks being performed in the playbook. Okay, use verbose. Okay, very nice. And Ansible dash playbook Cisco underscore router underscore IPv6. Press tab to complete, but add the verbose option Ansible dash playbook space dash b space and the name of the file. Okay, enter. Okay, failed one. This on red to show IPv6 interface brief. Review on Visual Studio Code. This is okay. The alignment register backspace. Okay, register should be on the same alignment of iOS command. Okay, save and run again. Ansible playbook, verbose, and the file name of the playbook. Okay, the first task, configure the interface with IPv6, link local. Second task, show the state of the interfaces. Okay, this is the content. Gigabit 1 up and gigabit 2 down, gigabit 3 down. The final task, save the show IPv6 interface brief output, save. Okay, okay, 3 change it to failed 0. Very nice. Okay, should display okay 3 change it to failed 0. Verify the file of the output has been created. Okay, and verify the contents of the file. Go to terminal. Okay, less iOS underscore tab to complete iOS configurations, and the file is starting with the file IPv6 tab. This is the name of the file, the existing file. Okay, enter. Now you can see the contents. Gigabit 1 with these IPv6 addresses and other interfaces, no IPv6 addresses. Q to exit. Very good. Okay, close the console of the router. Stop the router and stop the virtual machine. Close GNS3. And go to Oracle VM VirtualBox, and on the DevNet Associate Virtual Machine settings, on Network, change this to NAT, and on Advanced, be sure cable is connected. Okay, okay, and review. This is the configuration on networking. Okay, NAT and cable connected. Okay, thank you very much.